The Minister of Communications and Digital Technology, Malatsi, will host a policy colloquium to convene government, industry, regulators and civil society and academia for collaborative engagement and industry on priority reforms across the ICT sector. On the story, we've got SABC News reporter Nosipho Radebe. Nosipho, good morning to you. Talk to us about what we're expecting today. It sounds like quite an intense agenda.
A very good morning to you, Leanne, and to the viewers at home. Of course, it is a bit of an intense agenda that is on the front today. But when we look at this policy colloquium as well as the timing, it is essential that timing in the spotlight, and the ICT sector essentially at a turning point now as we see several policy processes that are happening in parallel, and they could directly shape how investment as well as competition and how South Africans really experience then the digital economy as well as moving forward. So we are expecting, of course, regulators to be here, policy makers as well. But to give us an indication, essentially, on the importance of today and what we can expect today, I'm turning now to the Communications Minister, Malatsi. Minister, thank you so much for your time this morning. As I mentioned, many or several policy processes happening in parallel as we come to this policy colloquium. Talk to us about the importance of having this sort of gathering today.
Look, the importance of it is to mark a fresh start in terms of approach to policy making it more inclusive, and relying on the contributions and the insight of experts across the sector. And what we are doing with this, and the intention is to co-create together with the sector. There is a recognition that where our state of policies are, the legislation that is hasn't modernized enough to keep up with developments and trends in this sector. And what we are intending to do is to have an industry-wide approach in terms of how we can co-create together in order to modernize our policies to respond appropriately to the demands of the times that we're in, but also to prepare for the future. The emergence of new technologies, how we approach, for instance, the digital economy and where we can unlock opportunities in there, but also to truly unlock the full potential of this sector, which we believe is the bedrock of a whole lot of other sectors. And for that to happen and for it to give life to the ambitions of this administration, which is, to pursue inclusive growth and job creation, we need to find opportunities for policy interventions in those spaces. And the approach we are taking is that government doesn't have all the answers on its own. The people who are impacted by the policy direction and interventions that government plays will be in this room. So it is best that we co-create, we co-find solutions together, but also to focus on depth, that being the fundamentals that are necessary to steer us in the right direction in the immediate, because we are not going to be in a position to address each and every policy question that is eminent across the sector, but those that are fundamental to helping this administration and, more importantly, this department to realize its goal as defined in the medium-term development policy statement.
Of course, you highlight, a collaboration is important when we look at this policy colloquium, but talk to us about how it differs then from other interventions.
Look, that's the most important part. We've taken an approach rather than government be lecturing to the sector about what ought to happen, is for us to take an approach of co-creating together. For us, it's an opportunity to absorb the insight, identification of the opportunities where the sector feels that this is where the fundamentals lie, and then to do the prioritization of that, focusing on the depth, aligning them, as I said, with the core ambitions of this administration, which is around pursuing inclusive growth and job creation, which for us is also about how we can enhance connectivity to South Africans, how we can pursue the affordability of the cost to communicate, including the cost of data, the cost of devices, and also digital upskilling of the public.
And when we look at this colloquium taking place, I mentioned that there's some policy processes that are underway, some that, of course, have direct bearing then on the economy going forward. Talk to us about maybe, or give us some indication on where some processes are, particularly when we look at the EIP. I understand that that's supposed to be finalized by March next year. Can you give us sort of any indication of where things are there?
Yeah, look, with regards to that in particular, we are now doing the stage where it's an analysis of the 19,000 submissions that we received following the public comments, and we are very close to finalizing that analysis and then doing the final, publication of that to the regulator, which in our case is ICASA, for final arbitration as it stands. That is just one based on an action we had initiated. The purpose of this, of course, is to look at holistically from a policy perspective where are opportunities that we can reshape and reset our sector in order to steer towards a path of growth, towards a path of more inclusive economic growth, towards a path that can unlock and attract investments into our country. We look into areas of, how to best position South Africa to be the hub for data centers, for instance.
And then finally, of course, the SABC funding model. We know that the BMIT, they've been appointed. Can you give us any sort of indication of where that process is?
Yes, in fact, interestingly, I met with BMT yesterday as part of, their stakeholder engagement process that they are doing in developing this funding model. So that is going very well. You'd remember at the time of the publication that we did that there was a 3 months time period to that. Part of the discussion we're having yesterday was in particular because there's a lot of work that ought to happen over the festive season period and early January, and that may cause an interruption. So we are assessing whether there would be actually a need to extend, their time span without actually additional cost. But that process is unfolding, and they've already started a series of engagement with different contributors that are essential to influencing, or at the very least, understanding how a SABC funding model should be developed.
All right. Thank you so much, Minister, for your time.
Thank you.
All right, that was Communications Minister Malatsi giving us an indication of those policy processes underway. For now, it's back to you in studio, Leanne.
Thanks, Nosipho Radebe, there in conversation with the Communications Minister.